I was standing in the aisle of this really high-end grocery store the other day.
Oh, yeah.
I was actually looking for just, regular tea, but I got distracted by this tiny, beautiful little bottle. It was labeled Golden Milk Elixir.
Let me guess. $7?
8, actually. And I turned it around to look at the ingredients, expecting some, I don't know, rare chemical compound or some newly discovered botanical.
Right.
And you know what it was? It was milk, turmeric, and a tiny pinch of black pepper.
The ancient superfood tax. It is absolutely everywhere these days.
It is. But the label was the best part. It was going on and on about this revolutionary new discovery in anti-inflammatory science. And I just stood there laughing because it reminded me of this incredible legal drama that played out a couple of decades ago. It's actually the perfect hook for what we're talking about today because it shows that the stuff we're diving into isn't just, dusty history. It's intellectual property, big money.
You're talking about the patent wars.
Mm.
Specifically, the turmeric and neem battles.
Exactly. This is where the rubber meets the road. So maybe set the scene for us. It's the mid-90s.
Right.
The U.S. Patent Office issues a patent to 2 researchers from a medical center in Mississippi. And what exactly did they claim to have invented?
Well, to put it simply, they claim to have discovered that applying turmeric powder to a wound promotes healing. They filed for a patent on the use of turmeric in wound healing.
Which, if you have ever set foot in an Indian household, or frankly, if you've ever met an Indian grandmother, it's just hilarious.
It's baffling. I mean, for literally thousands of years, if a kid in India scraped their knee playing cricket, the grandmother didn't reach for Neosporin or a Band-Aid.
No.
She reached for the turmeric jar in the kitchen. It's the first line of defense. It's antiseptic. It's anti-inflammatory. It's just common knowledge.
And then, almost at the same time, a multinational corporation gets a patent for a fungicide derived from the neem tree.
Right, neem.
Again, something Indian farmers have been using since, the Bronze Age to keep bugs off their grain?
Exactly. So suddenly you have this situation where traditional knowledge stuff that is effectively open source in Indian culture, stuff that belongs to the community, is suddenly locked up and owned by a foreign entity.
And this wasn't just about pride, was it?
No, it was about economics. I mean, if you patent it, you can potentially charge royalties or restrict its use. It has huge implications.
And India decided, no, we are not doing this.
They did. The Council of Scientific and Industrial Research, or CSIR, launched this massive legal counterattack. But here's the fascinating part, and this is really the key to our entire deep dive today.
Okay.
The turning point in the case wasn't proving that turmeric works. The U.S. Patent Office didn't really care about the efficacy. They cared about one thing: novelty.
They had to prove it wasn't new. They had to prove prior art.
Exactly, prior art.
Yeah.
In patent law, you can't patent something that is already known to the public. But the American Examiner said, okay, sure, you say your grandmothers use it, but where is the documentation? Show us the scientific paper. Show us the journal article from, 1950.
And that's the friction point, right? The knowledge wasn't in a peer-reviewed journal in English. It was somewhere else entirely.
Exactly. It was an ancient text like the Ayurveda, written in classical Sanskrit, or was passed down orally through folk songs and family traditions. So the Indian scientists literally had to dig up ancient Sanskrit verses, translate them, and present them to a modern court to prove, hey, we documented this 2,000 years ago. You are patenting our heritage.
And they won.
They won. They got the patents revoked.
Yeah.
But that moment was this massive wake-up call for the Indian government and for scholars. It highlighted that this huge repository of wisdom, what we call the Indian Knowledge System, or IKS, wasn't just mythology or religion or folklore.
It was a database.
It was a database,
Yeah.
a distinct, organized system of received wisdom that had immense economic and intellectual value. And the realization was, if we don't organize it, translate it, and assert ownership over it, someone else will.
And that is what we are diving into today. We're looking at this massive, and I have to admit, slightly intimidating book titled Introduction to Indian Knowledge System, Concepts and Applications by B. Mahadevan and his colleagues.
It's a beast.
It is. And our mission today is pretty ambitious. We aren't just skimming the surface. We want to try and figure out, how did a civilization maintain a continuous stream of knowledge for over 5,000 years, largely before writing was widespread?
That's the million-dollar question.
And more importantly, what exactly is inside this library? What are we talking about when we say IKS?
It's a great question, and I think we need to start by clearing the air, Because when people hear Indian knowledge system or Indian wisdom, they often just think Hinduism or religion.
Right, they picture incense, chanting, maybe some yoga pants, or a guru sitting on a mountain.
Which is part of the cultural expression, sure. But the source material makes a very sharp technical distinction right at the beginning. It defines IKS as a combination of two specific Sanskrit terms, jnana and vijnana.
Jnana and Vijnana. Okay, let's break those down. What is the difference?
So jnana is the spiritual knowledge. That's the big picture stuff. Understanding the self, the nature of consciousness, the relationship between you and the universe. That's the why. It deals with the subjective experience of reality.
Okay, so that's the philosophy, the metaphysics.
Right. But Vijnana is the applied wisdom. It's the how. It's the science. It's architecture, metallurgy, mathematics, medicine, governance, town planning, agriculture.
Wow, okay. So it's everything.
It's everything. And the beauty of the system, and this is where it differs so significantly from the modern Western academic structure, is that it doesn't separate the two.
So you don't have, like, church on Sunday and the science lab on Monday, and they never talk to each other.
Exactly. In the modern world, we have this silo effect. Physics is in this building, theology is across campus, and they don't talk. In the Indian knowledge system, they were deeply integrated. A mathematician in ancient India wasn't just crunching numbers for the sake of abstract theory. They were often calculating the stress loads for a temple or the trajectory of a planet for a ritual calendar. The science served the spiritual, and the spiritual informed the science.
I really like that framework. It's holistic. It suggests that you can't be a good scientist if you don't understand the context of your universe, and you can't be a spiritual person if you ignore the physical laws of nature.
Precisely. And the authors present this concept of the knowledge triangle to explain how this system actually survived for 5 millennia. Because, let's be honest, paper rots.
Right.
Palm leaves crumble. Buildings get destroyed. How did the data survive?
That's that miracle of transmission we have to get into. It's fascinating.
So the triangle consists of 3 points. First, you have the literary source, the actual texts, the source code, the Vedas, the Shastras.
Okay, the written stuff.
Second, the oral tradition, the delivery mechanism. This is the Gurukul system where knowledge was chanted and memorized, passed from teacher to student.
The human hard drive.
Exactly. And third, and this is crucial, practice or lifestyle.
Practice. What do you mean by that?
Yeah. Think about it this way. If you write a book on how to bake bread, and then you lose the book, and nobody remembers how to read the language,
The knowledge is gone.
it's gone. But if you teach a whole village to bake bread every single morning as a ritual, if it becomes part of their daily lifestyle, you don't need the book. The knowledge is in the muscles and habits and the daily life of the people.
So the culture itself becomes the storage medium.
That's how IKS survived.
Yeah.
It wasn't just read, it was lived. It was embedded in the way people ate, built their houses, farmed their land.
That's a powerful image. Okay, so let's walk into this library. If we were to organize the Indian knowledge system, how is it structured? Because the source material talks about something called the 14 abodes of knowledge, which I have to say sounds like a level in a fantasy video game.
Chuckles. It does have a certain mystique to it. You must unlock the 14 abodes. The Sanskrit term is Kadardasha Vidyasthana. And you can think of it as the Dewey Decimal System for ancient India. It's the organizing principle for everything they knew.
Okay, so lay out the blueprint for me.
It breaks down into 3 main sections, or shelves, if you will.
Okay.
Shelf 1 is the core, the 4 Vedas. That's the absolute source of authority, the constitution, so to speak.
The primary source text.
Then shelf 2 is the toolkit, the 6 Vedangas. These are the limbs of the Veda. You can't understand the core without these tools. They're the user manuals.
Limbs. Okay, I like that metaphor.
And shelf 3 is the extensions. The 4 Upogas, or subsidiary texts. This is where you get things like law, Dharmashastras, logic, Nyaya, history, Porteous, and philosophy, Mimamsa.
So 4 Vedas plus 6 Vedangas plus 4 Upagas, that's the 14.
That's the architecture. Everything fits into one of those boxes. Whether you are studying how to build a house, which is Vastu, or how to argue a court case, which is Nyaya, it plugs into this system.
Before we pull the books off the shelf, I want to circle back to that oral tradition piece. It boggles my mind. You mentioned earlier that a lot of this was preserved without writing.
For a very long time, yes.
Now, I played the game telephone as a kid. You whisper, "The sky is blue" to the person next to you, and by the time it gets to the 10th person, it's "the pie is new."
Right. Data corruption. It's a huge problem.
And we are talking about thousands of years here, not 10 people in a circle. How on earth do you prevent that data corruption? The source material goes into this deep technical detail about error correction, and frankly, it blew my mind. It sounds like computer science.
It is effectively a biological algorithm. It's one of the most sophisticated error correction systems humanity has ever devised. The Vedas are often called Shruti,
Fruity.
which means that which is heard. For a long time, it was actually considered a sin to write them down because the belief was that the sound itself, the specific vibration, held the power. If you wrote it, you killed the sound.
So you have to memorize it. But we're not talking about a nursery rhyme. We are talking about thousands upon thousands of verses.
Tens of thousands. So to lock it in memory and prevent what we'd call bit rot, they developed these recitation styles called Vikipaya.
Vikatipaha. Okay, how does that work? Break it down.
Okay, so imagine a simple sentence. The red car.
The red car. Got it.
The standard way to recite it is called Samhitapaha, just straight through. The red car. That's easy to forget or mess up.
Sure.
But to verify that, you use Pataha, where you isolate each word. The red. Red car. So that's the first check.
Okay, that makes sense.
Then it gets much more complex. There's something called Kramapaha, which is a step-by-step linking. So you'd say, the red car.
Ah, so you're overlapping pairs like a chain link. You're confirming the connection between each word.
Exactly. But the ultimate encryption, the nuclear option, is called Ganapaha, and this is just, it's incredible.
Okay, Abby.
For the red car, it goes like this. The red car, red, the red car.
Whoa. Wait, say that again slowly.
It's a mathematical braiding. The pattern is AB, BA, ABC, CBA, ABC. You go forward 2 words, back 1, then forward to the 3rd word, then all the way back. It's a palindrome structure.
That is intense. It sounds like a tongue twister from another dimension.
It's incredibly difficult. It requires immense focus. But think about the result. If you forget even one syllable, or if you change the tone of one vowel, the mathematical pattern breaks. The rhythm is gone. You know immediately that there's an error.
It's a checksum.
It acts exactly like a checksum in a digital file. Because of this Ganapahya recitation, which is still practiced today, scholars are confident that the Rig Veda we hear chanted is acoustically identical to what was chanted 3,000 years ago.
That is absolutely incredible. It's like a human blockchain, a distributed, immutable ledger stored in neurons instead of on a server. And if one person forgets, the person next to them has the checksum.
That is a perfect analogy. And they didn't just do this for text, they did it for numbers too. The source mentioned the Katabayeti system.
Yes, this was the part about hashing numbers into words. I had to read this section twice to make sure I wasn't hallucinating. This is so clever.
Right. So let's say you are an astronomer in 500 AD. You need to remember the position of Jupiter, which is a specific degree, like 145.6 degrees. Or you need to remember a mathematical constant, like pi.
You can't just write 145 on a Post-it note. You might lose the note or the ink might fade.
So what do? You use a code. They assign Sanskrit consonants to numbers. The system is a bit complex, but essentially, ka, ta, pa, and ya are all equal to 1. Ka, ta, fa, ra are 2, and so on.
Okay, so it's a cipher.
It's a cipher. So if you need to remember the number for pi, for example, 3.1415, instead of memorizing a string of dry digits, you compose a poem. You choose words where the consonants decode into the numbers you need.
Give me an example. This is just too good.
Okay, so there is a famous hymn to Lord Krishna regarding his flute and the gopis, the milkmaids. It's a beautiful devotional song. It sounds like Gopi Vagyamadatvrata.
Okay.
It translates to a praise of Krishna. But if you decode the letters using Kai Pi Yadi Go is 3, pi is 1, pi is 4, ya is 1, and so on, gives you the value of pi to 31 decimal places.
Stop it. No way.
Yeah.
So they're singing a devotional song to God, but they're actually reciting a mathematical constant with extreme precision.
Exactly. It's a dual-use technology. It serves the heart and the mind simultaneously. If you're a devotee, it's a prayer. If you're a mathematician, it's a reference table. This is what I meant by Jnana and Vijnana being integrated. They didn't see a difference between the divinity of Krishna and the divinity of mathematics.
That is just wildly clever. It makes you wonder how much hidden data is in these texts that we just haven't decoded yet.
A huge amount, I would suspect.
Okay, so we have the structure, the 14 abodes, and we have the method of transmission, the chanting, and the encryption. Now let's look at the data itself. Let's look at the 4 Vedas. The source material calls them aparya.
Aparya, yes, meaning not of human origin.
What does that actually mean?
Right. And we need to parse that carefully. The tradition says these weren't written by authors in the modern sense, like Shakespeare wrote Hamlet or J.K. Rowling wrote Harry Potter. They were heard or seen by rishi seers in states of deep contemplation. They viewed themselves as antennas picking up a cosmic signal that was always there, not as inventors creating a text from scratch.
So it's discovery, not invention. Like Newton discovering gravity. He didn't invent gravity, he just described the law that was already there.
Precisely. And the Vedas are the description of those cosmic laws. There are 4 of them: Rig, Yajur, Sama, and Atharva. And each one has a very specific flavor or purpose.
And the source also points out that each Veda has its own internal structure, right? Like 4 layers.
Yes, every Veda is split into 4 layers. Think of it as a user manual.
Okay.
First is the Saita. That's the core text, the hymns, the mantras themselves.
Raw data.
Then comes the Brahman. This is the how-to manual. It explains the rituals and the procedures for using the mantras.
Right.
Third are the Arayakas, or forest texts. These are for people who are retreating from society. They explain the symbolic and philosophical meaning behind the rituals.
So it's the why behind the how.
And finally, the Upanishads. This is the philosophical end of Vedanta. This layer deals with the ultimate nature of reality and the self. It's the most abstract and philosophical part.
Okay, so with that structure in mind, let's do a quick deep dive into each one. The Rig Veda is the big one, right? The oldest?
The oldest and the largest. It's mostly hymns, mantras dedicated to nature and deities. Agni for fire, Indra for thunder and power, Vayu for wind. But the source highlights something really important here. It's not just blind faith or idol worship.
No.
No, there is a very strong scientific temper in the Rig Veda, a spirit of inquiry.
Yeah, I was reading about the Nasadiya Sukta, or the creation hymn. It's surprisingly skeptical for what we'd call a religious text.
It is famous for that. It talks about the origin of the universe, but instead of saying God X made it on day 1 and it was good, it just asks questions.
Yeah.
It starts by saying there was neither existence nor non-existence, no air, no sky.
Okay.
And then it asks, who really knows? Who can say whence it all came? Even the gods came later than the creation, so who knows where this arose?
Even the gods came later. That's a bold statement for a foundational religious text.
It's an incredibly bold statement. It implies that there's a fundamental law or principle that precedes even the personified deities. It admits the limits of human knowledge. It ends with this haunting line: perhaps he who surveys it from the highest, heaven knows. Or perhaps even he does not know.
Or perhaps even he does not know. I love that. It's an invitation to inquire, not a command to believe. It sounds almost like modern cosmology. We have the Big Bang Theory, but what was there before the Big Bang, we just don't know.
Exactly. It preserves the mystery. It says the ultimate questions are still open.
Okay, moving to the Ayurveda. The source calls this the handbook for yajna. Now, I usually think of yajna as just, sitting around a fire and throwing ghee in.
That's the common image.
But the analysis here was different. It compared it to project management.
Yes. This is a brilliant insight from the book. If you look at a grand Vedic yajna, it is a massive logistical operation. We're talking about an event that could last for weeks or even months. You have to build a precise brick structure, which is civil engineering. You have to gather specific herbs and materials from different regions, which is supply chain management.
Okay.
And you have to coordinate a team of priests, each with a very specific defined role.
The source listed them, right? The Hot, the Avurio.
Exactly. Think of it like a corporate structure or a film crew. You have different departments.
Okay, break it down for me.
The Hot recites the Rig Veda. He invokes the energy. He's the scriptwriter, the one who knows the core text. The Udgata sings the Samaveda. He sets the mood, the vibration. He's the sound engineer.
Okay.
The Udgata is the hands-on operations manager. He follows the Yajurveda, which is full of prose instructions. He measures the altar, he pours the ghee, he moves the ladles, he does all the physical work.
So he's the director of operations.
Precisely. And finally, the Brahmin. He sits silent, watching everything.
What's his job if he's just sitting there? Is he just the boss?
He is the quality assurance lead. He is the supervisor. Because he is expected to know all 3 of the other Vedas. If the Advaryu pours the ghee at the wrong angle, or the Hot mispronounces a word, the Brahmin steps in to correct it.
So it's a complex, fail-safe organization.
It is. The Ayurveda provides the standard operating procedures for this entire project. It's all about process and precision.
I love the idea of the Brahmin just being the QA guy. Nope, cut. Let's do that take again.
Tickles. That's literally his job, to maintain the atta, which is the cosmic order or the correctness of the ritual. If the ritual is done wrong, the result is nullified.
Okay, so that brings us to the Samaveda.
The Veda of melodies. This one is simple in concept but profound in practice. It takes the text of the Rig Veda and turns it into song. This is the root of Indian classical music.
So it's about the emotional impact.
It recognizes that sound has a psychological effect. It's not just about the meaning of the words. It's about the vibration and the trance-like state it can induce. If Rig Veda is the lyrics, Samaveda is the music. It explores the connection between sound, consciousness, and emotion.
And finally, the Atharva Veda. This one felt different, less cosmic, more street level.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. The Atharva Veda is the Veda of earthly life. While the others are looking at the gods and the grand cosmic rituals, Atharva Veda is looking at us, down here.
What kind of stuff is in it?
It deals with diseases and cures.
Right. Yeah.
So it's at the root of Ayurveda, the medical system. It deals with statecraft, how a king should rule, how to win a battle. It even has hymns and what you might call spells for peace, for winning a lover or for protecting crops.
So it's practical. It's the day-to-day stuff.
Very. It bridges the gap between the high spiritual ideals and the messy reality of being a human being. If you had a fever or a rival or a drought, you went to the Atharva Veda.
So that's the core, the 4 massive pillars. But as you said, you can't just read them. They're encrypted, they're poetic, they're archaic. You need the toolkit, you need the Vedangas.
The limbs of the Veda, there are 6 of them. And honestly, this is where the science part of Vijnana really, really shines. These weren't just religious commentaries. They were hardcore scientific disciplines developed to support the understanding of the Vedas.
Let's run through them. Sika was the first one, phonetics.
Right. And it makes sense that this is first because of the oral tradition. Pronunciation was life or death for the text. They analyzed sound production with medical precision.
How so?
They mapped how air travels from the navel up through the lungs to the throat, to the palate, to the teeth, to the lips. They classified every single sound in the Sanskrit language based on where it resonates in the human body.
This isn't just hooked on phonics, is it?
No, this is the anatomy of sound. They understood that shifting your tongue 1 millimeter changes the frequency. They categorized sounds into gutturals, palatals, cerebrals, dentals, and labials. This is linguistics 101 today, but they codified it 2,500 years ago.
And that leads directly into the second one, Vyakarna grammar. And here we meet a superstar, Panini. The source material makes a really bold claim here. It compares Panini's grammar to computer code.
And that's not an exaggeration from the authors. It's a widely held view in linguistics and computer science. Panini wrote the Antai around 500 BCE. It's a grammar of Sanskrit, but it's not written like a normal textbook.
How is it different?
He doesn't just list sentences and rules. He creates a generative grammar. He defined a finite set of roots, the raw data, and a finite set of rules, about 4,000 algorithms. And if you feed the roots into the rules, you can generate every possible correct Sanskrit sentence.
So it's an algorithm, a language machine.
It is literally an algorithm. He uses concepts that we think of as modern computer science. Recursion, where rules call themselves, meta-rules, which are rules about how to apply other rules, and variable transformation. Modern linguists look at Peishi and see the structure of a high-level programming language. We basically coded the Sanskrit language.
That is just wild. It explains why Sanskrit is often called the most computer-friendly language. It was literally built like code from the ground up.
Exactly.
And speaking of code, let's talk about chandas, or metrics. This is the study of poetic rhythm. But the source introduces us to another figure, Pegala, and this is where my jaw hit the floor. Binary numbers.
Yes. This is one of those the history books are wrong moments. We are taught that binary numbers, zeros and ones, are a modern invention or maybe attributed to Leibniz in the 17th century.
Right.
But Pegala, writing around 200 or 300 BCE, was studying poetry. In Sanskrit poetry, you have long syllables called guru and short syllables called lagu. Think of them as one and oa.
Okay. So long and short, on and off.
Exactly. Pegala wanted to figure out all the possible combinations of meters you could make. If you have a line with 3 beats, how many variations are there? If you have 4 beats, how many?
It's a combinatorial problem.
It is. And to do this, he essentially created a system of binary notation. He developed algorithms to convert decimal numbers into these binary patterns of long and short syllables, and back again. He was doing binary math.
So centuries before modern computing was even a glimmer in anyone's eye.
Pegala was doing it, and there's more. He also described a structure he called Meru Prastara, the mountain of gems. If you draw it out, it is exactly what we call Pascal's triangle today.
Wow.
But Pegala was doing it for poetry, almost 2,000 years before Pascal.
It just shows how everything was connected. He wasn't trying to invent a computer. He was trying to understand the beauty of poetry, but the underlying math was the same.
Math is the language of pattern, whether that pattern is in silicon or in syllables.
Okay, there are three more Vedangas: Nirukta, etymology, the study of word origins.
Right, which was basically a dictionary to make sure you understood the ancient metaphors correctly.
Jyotiya, astronomy, to calculate the right time for rituals.
Which required advanced observational astronomy and timekeeping.
And the last one, Kalpa, ritual. Specifically, the source points to the Sulba Sutras. This is where we get the serious geometry, right?
Yes, this goes right back to the yajna, the fire ritual. You need to build a fire altar. And the Vedas are very specific. They'll say things like, the altar must be exactly X square feet in area, but it has to be shaped like a falcon with spread wings.
That sounds incredibly difficult.
It's an insane geometry problem. You have to convert a square or a rectangle into this complex curved falcon shape while keeping the exact same surface area. If you get the area wrong, the ritual fails.
So how did they do it?
To solve this, the Vedic priests developed advanced geometry. The Sulba Sutras contain, among many other things, the Pythagorean theorem, describing the relationship of the sides of a right triangle centuries before Pythagoras was born. They calculated the square root of 2 to a high degree of precision.
Again, not for a math test, not for abstract knowledge, but to build a brick altar correctly.
Applied wisdom, vijnana. They needed the math to solve a practical spiritual problem. The two were one and the same.
Okay, so we have the core, which is the Vedas. We have the tools to understand them, the Vedangas. Now we need to talk about the operating system, the worldview, the philosophical systems, or darshanas.
Darshana is a beautiful word. It comes from the root duyu, which means to see. So dhyana is a vision or a point of view. It's how you see reality.
And there isn't just one.
Oh, no. The Indian tradition is unique because it doesn't just have one philosophy. You have a whole spectrum of them. And they classify them into two big buckets, the Nastika and Nastika.
What's the difference?
It's simple. Duyasic schools accept the authority of the Vedas as the ultimate source of knowledge. Nastika schools reject the authority of the Vedas.
Okay, let's start with the big ones, the Astika systems. There are 6 of them, and they're usually paired up. The first pair is Sakhya and Yoga.
Right. Sakhya is the theory. Yoga is the practice. Sakhya is what's called a dualist philosophy. It says the universe is made of two fundamentally distinct things, purua, which is consciousness, and prothi, which is matter or nature.
Consciousness and matter. The observer and the observed.
Exactly. Purua is the witness, the silent, unchanging observer. That's the real you. Prakriti is everything else, your body, your mind, your thoughts, your emotions, the physical world.
So even your thoughts are considered matter?
Yes, subtle matter. The problem, according to Sakya, is that we get confused. We mix them up. We think I am sad, which is a state of the mind, which is prakriti, instead of realizing I am the consciousness observing sadness.
That's a key distinction. You are not your thoughts. You are the one who is aware of your thoughts.
Exactly. And yoga is the technology to realize that distinction.
Yeah.
Sakya gives you the map. Yoga gives you the vehicle. And the source emphasizes that yoga is not just doing stretches in expensive leggings.
Chuckles. The gym yoga versus real yoga debate.
Right. Patanjali's yoga is a comprehensive 8-step system, the Aga.
8 limbs.
It starts with ethics, yama and niyama. Basically, if you are a liar or a thief or just a jerk, you can't do yoga. Your mind is too agitated.
So you have to clean up your life first.
Then comes posture, asana, and breath, pranayama. But those are just prep work to calm the nervous system and make the body still. The real goal is the internal work. Withdrawing the senses, pratyahara, one-pointed focus, dharana, sustained meditation, dhyana, and finally samadhi liberation, where you fully realize you are puro.
So it's a systematic technology for hacking your own consciousness.
A perfect description.
Then we have the next pair, Nyaya and Vaishika. These felt like the science and logic department of the university.
They absolutely are. Nyaya is the school of logic. It's obsessed with epistemology, which is the study of knowledge itself. It asks, how do we know what is true?
A pretty important question.
A vital one. They developed a rigorous system of debate. You couldn't just say, I feel this is true. You had to prove it using one of their accepted means of knowledge. Perception, pratyeko, inference, anumana, analogy, upamana, or reliable testimony, shabda. This is where the Indian tradition of logical debate comes from. It was rigorous.
And Vaishika, what was their focus?
Vaishika is the ancient school of physics. They were atomists. They believe the material world is made of indivisible particles called parama, or atoms. Their whole project was to categorize reality into its fundamental building blocks: substances, qualities, actions, and so on. It's a very categorical, scientific way of looking at the world.
Okay, and the last pair of the Vedic systems, Mimamsa and Vedanta.
This is the split between doing and knowing, or action versus knowledge.
How so?
Krutava Mimamsa, which means the earlier inquiry, focuses on the ritual part of the Vedas, the Brahmanas. It's all about action, karma. It says, the universe runs on rules. If you do the right ritual in the right way, you get the right result, period. It's very process-oriented. It's about maintaining the cosmic order through your duties and actions.
So it's about what you do.
Exactly. But Vedanta, which means the end of the Veda, focuses on the Upanishads. It shifts the focus from ritual to knowledge, jhana. It says rituals are good, but the ultimate goal is to understand. It asks the big questions. Who am I? What is the nature of God? What is the nature of reality?
And this is probably the most famous school of Indian philosophy in the West today.
By far.
But even within Vedanta, there are different views, right? The source mentions 3 big schools. It wasn't a monolith.
No, and this really shows the diversity of thought. You have 3 main flavors, 3 different answers to the big questions. First, you have Advaita Vedanta, or non-dualism, championed by the philosopher Shankara. He says, only the ultimate reality, which he calls Brahman, is real. The world we see is an illusion, or Maya, and fundamentally your individual soul, your Atman and Brahman, are one and the same. You are God, I am that.
Okay, so the drop of water is the ocean. There's no difference.
A perfect analogy.
Yeah.
Then you have Vishadvaita, or qualified non-dualism, from Ramanuja. He says, no, Shankara is wrong. The world is real, not an illusion. And we, our souls, are part of God, like a spark is part of a fire or a cell is part of a body. We are one with God, but we are also distinct. There's a relationship.
So the drop of water is in the ocean and of the ocean, but it's still a drop.
Exactly. And finally, you have Daita, or dualism, from Madhva. He takes the opposite view entirely. He says, no, 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 God is God. You are you. We are eternally separate beings. We can love God, we can serve God, but we never become God.
So the drop of water is eternally separate from the ocean.
Right. And I love that the system allows for all these conflicting views. You can be a non-dualist, a dualist, a ritualist, or logician, and you're still considered to be working within the Vedic fold. It's an open architecture. It prizes inquiry over dogma.
But it gets even more open, because now we have to talk about the challengers, the Gnostica systems, the ones that came along and said, we reject the authority of the Vedas entirely.
The rebels. And the biggest and most influential ones are, of course, the Jains and the Buddhists.
Let's start with Jaina philosophy. The source mentions a really cool concept called Anekantavada. What is that?
Anekantavada means non-absolutism, or many-sidedness. It's the core philosophical idea of Jainism. It's the idea that reality and truth are too complex to be captured by one single viewpoint. The famous analogy here is the blind man and the elephant.
Oh, I know this one. One touches the trunk and says it's a snake. One touches the leg and says it's a tree. Another touches the tail and says it's a rope.
Right. And they all start arguing, ready to kill each other over who is right. And the Jain philosopher comes along and says, you are all right, but you are all wrong. You only have a partial view of the truth.
That's a philosophy that breeds immense tolerance, doesn't it?
It has to, because you accept that your opponent might be right from their perspective. And this links directly to their central ethical principle, which is an extreme emphasis on ahimsa, or nonviolence. Violence comes from thinking, I am right and you are wrong, so I must destroy you. If you accept Anekantavada, you cannot be truly violent in thought, word, or deed.
Then there's Buddhism, or Buddha philosophy.
The Buddha also rejected the Vedic rituals and the caste system. He focused his entire teaching on one problem: suffering, dukkha. His 4 noble truths are structured just like a medical diagnosis.
How so?
1, here is the illness. Life is characterized by suffering. 2, here's the cause of the illness, desire, and ignorance. 3, here is the prognosis. There is a cure it can end. That's nirvana. And 4, here is the prescription, the eightfold path. It's a very pragmatic psychological approach.
And the key difference the source pointed out was about the concept of the self.
Yes. This is a major point of departure. The Vedas talk about the Atman, the eternal, unchanging soul that moves from body to body. Buddhism teaches anatta, no permanent self.
No soul.
Not in the permanent sense. The Buddha taught it that what we think of as me is just a flowing stream of consciousness, a temporary collection of thoughts, feelings, and sensations. It's not a solid, unchanging rock. Everything is transient.
No, here's where it gets surprising for me. We tend to think of ancient India as this purely spiritual, metaphysical place. But the source introduces a group called the Carvakas, the materialists.
The Carvakas are fascinating. They were the ancient atheists and skeptics. They rejected God, rejected the Vedas, rejected the afterlife, rejected karma. They said the only thing that is real is what you can see and touch. The only valid source of knowledge is direct perception.
And their motto, quoted in the book, was just hilarious.
Pedantic. While you live, live happily, borrow money to drink tea, for once the body is ash, there is no return.
Borrow money to drink ghee. That is the ancient version of YOLO. You only live once. Charge it to the credit card.
It is. But it's so important that they existed. It shows that this knowledge system wasn't a monolith. It included skeptics, atheists, and hedonists. They were part of the Great Debate. The logic schools like Nyaya had to sharpen their arguments specifically to debate the Carvakas.
So the presence of the atheists actually made the believers smarter and more logical.
Absolutely. The friction created the heat, and the heat forged the steel of their arguments.
That is a really powerful point. Okay, so we've toured the library, we've seen the structure with the 14 abodes, the core texts of the Vedas, the scientific tools of the Vedangas, and the incredibly diverse philosophies of the Darshanas. As we wrap up this deep dive, I want to go back to that so what question. Why does this matter to someone listening in 2026?
I think we go back to the definition we started with, jnana plus vijnana.
Yeah.
Wisdom and applied science together. We live in a world of hyper-specialization. We have incredible data, but very little wisdom. We have amazing medical technology, but people are sicker than ever with chronic disease. We have advanced engineering, but a collapsing environment.
You've separated the how from the why.
We have. And the Indian knowledge system, at its best, offers a framework where values, science, and lifestyle are integrated. It's holistic.
How does that apply today?
Well, think about the environmental crisis. The Vedic view doesn't see nature as a resource to be exploited. It sees pati, nature, as sacred, as divine. The rivers are goddesses, the trees have spirits. Now, you can dismiss that as superstition.
Or you can see it as a sustainability protocol encoded in culture, a way of ensuring you don't destroy your own habitat.
Exactly. And there's the cognitive aspect, too. The source mentions the shift from military power to knowledge power in the modern world. In the past, nations dominated by having the biggest army. In the future, and even now, dominance comes from knowledge power. India's strength historically was never that it conquered the world militarily. It was that it was the world's university. People traveled from China, from Greece, from Persia to study at universities like Nalanda and Takshashila.
And those ideas spread.
They did. And today, whether it's the binary numbers running our computers, which we can trace back to Palagla, or the techniques of meditation managing our stress, which come from yoga, these threads of ancient wisdom are woven into the fabric of modern life. We just often forget where they came from.
And there's one final provocative thought that stuck with me from the source. It's about memory. We rely so much on our devices now. I don't even know my best friend's phone number. My phone knows it for me.
That's the danger, isn't it? The IKS, with its oral tradition, proved that the human mind has an almost infinite capacity for storage and recall if it's trained correctly. That oral tradition preserved a massive library for 5,000 years without technology. Today, if the power grid goes down or the cloud gets corrupted, we lose everything.
That is a haunting thought. We are outsourcing our own brains to external devices.
It raises a serious question. Are we becoming smarter because of our technology, or are we simply atrophying our own internal capabilities? The rishis, the ancient seers, would probably say we are focusing too much on the external world of objects, the prakriti, and completely forgetting the internal world of consciousness, the purua.
Something to mull over the next time you ask your smart speaker for a simple answer.
Indeed.
Thank you for guiding us through this massive, massive library today. It was a real journey.
My pleasure. There is always more to learn.
And to all of you listening, thanks for taking the plunge with us. Keep those synapses firing, and maybe, just maybe, try memorizing something important today instead of writing it down. See you in the next deep dive.